So welcome everybody to today's Northeast Extension Fruit Consortium webinar. For those that don't know me, I'm Mike Bastow. I'm with Cornell Cooperative Extension's Eastern New York Commercial Horticulture Program, and I'm based in the Champlain Valley. I'm going to be moderating today's session. So today we're going to be hearing from Dr. Jaime Piñero on mass trapping for Japanese beetle management. I'll also mention now that we are going to have a few more sessions before we wrap up for the winter. Next week, we're going to have one on how to effectively engage with the press. We're going to have Dr. Jessica McBride from UConn come and talk to us about that. And we're also going to have a few growers answering some questions too. So Andre Tugas and Chelsea Martin are going to be joining us and talking about what went well for them, what didn't go so well for them this past spring. So please be sure to sign up for that. And I'll introduce our speaker next. Most of you probably know him already, so probably really needs no introduction, but we're going to be hearing from Dr. Jaime Piñero, an entomologist at the University of Massachusetts. His research seeks to develop behaviorally based pest management tools, such as attract and kill systems, based on information from insect sensory ecology and behavior. So with that, Jaime, I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen and let you take over.
Thank you very much. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jaime Piñero, entomologist, as Mike already said. I'm very happy to present about mass trapping research conducted 10 years ago. This is the first time I present these results in New England because I thought there was no need to control Japanese beetles in some systems, but I think I was wrong. There is a need to control Japanese beetles sometimes. So I will be presenting for the next, let's say 45 to 50 minutes. And I would like to start by telling you that I spent 8 years in Missouri before coming to Massachusetts. My work in Missouri, it was to work with the fruits and vegetables, IPM. So what you can see now in this slide is one of the farms in Missouri, University Farms, Lincoln University, George Washington Carver Farm. What you can see is a huge area with ryegrass and fescue and a very small block of elderberry. So when you are in this situation that you have a lot of food for the larvae, a lot of space, Japanese beetles are going to be every year exerting high pressure to the elderberry. How can you control Japanese beetles in a very small block, which is elderberry? Well, of course, insecticides is an option. A second example is the Lincoln University Busby Farm. The whole farm is organic, 270 acres of organic land. How can you protect 2.5 acres of blueberries, which are grown organically? In Missouri, in 2017, it was the year with the highest Japanese beetle populations ever recorded. So I know this is not the case in New England, but I want to show you a video in just 30 seconds so you can see the situation in Missouri 7 years ago in blueberry. My point here is that you have to be good at timing when to spray against any pest in any crop. So the video is coming in a moment. That is blueberry. And we know that blueberries are not the most attractive plant. You have blackberries and grapes, etc. But this situation in blueberry, it was extremely bad in 2017 in Missouri. So Missouri was invaded by the Japanese beetles 10 years before, and slowly populations increased. In New England, I understand that they're lower, much lower than Missouri. And then growers, they were asking me questions. Hey, Jaime, how can I control Japanese beetles in organic systems? Well, that was a difficult question because organic management using insecticides is very difficult. You can apply pyganic, you can apply other materials. They are not going to be very effective because it's difficult to kill Japanese beetles with those insecticides. Plus, they're expensive. And those botanical materials, they can degrade quickly with the UV light and heat. So you have to spray twice a week. So what I want to be discussing today is mass trapping as a strategy to manage Japanese beetles, not only in organic systems, it can be implemented by anyone. So yes, you can apply insecticides. That will be the number one recommendation in most cases. You can exclude some areas with this screen. You can apply nematodes to the soil to kill the larvae. You can also apply milky spore, which is the bacteria. You can apply to the soil. You can kill the grubs. But in Missouri, when you have such a large area with pasture, fescue, rye, you cannot really apply in those areas any of these biologicals. So when I was talking to extension friends, colleagues from Missouri, and I told them, I think I would like to start with mass trapping. I would like to evaluate mass trapping. They told me, Jaime, don't do it. You are going to bring so many beetles, many more than otherwise. So I decided to do it anyway. So what you can see in the picture is the traps that you can buy in general. So this is not a mass trapping device. This is what you can use for monitoring. So maybe you have seen this slide many times now, but my point here is that we can study insect behavior, we can evaluate pheromones, we can evaluate plant volatiles, and then you can develop attractant kill systems. Basically, you can bring the pest, you can pull the pest to a specific area where you can kill them. But you need to have very powerful attractants, pheromones, and plant volatiles. But what I'm trying to say now with the attractant kill is that you need to have pheromones, plant volatiles, and we have examples in different insects, in different systems in the US, where you can use bait stations, mass trapping systems, trap cropping for plum curculio. Those use pheromones and plant volatiles. So what I would like to do is to show you the results of research conducted for 6 years in 2 different farms, Lincoln University farms. I did other work in other farms, but I want to focus on this. So what I would like to highlight at this moment is that you can see that the research is not 1 year or 2, and it's not just one farm. It's multiple years, multiple farms to see if this can really work. Well, mass trapping basically is a technique that you can use using traps, and again, pheromones, plant volatiles. You can combine with attractive colors so the insect visually responds to these traps. For Japanese beetles, the best lure is not coming from Walmart or Ace Hardware or Lowe's. Is coming from Great Lakes IPM, because the lure is for agricultural use. It's not expensive. I think it's about $6 or $7 for one lure, the whole piece, floral volatile, the sex pheromone together. So what I decided to do for research is to develop these socks. And that is because it was easy for me to do. You can see on the left, the sock is full. It's about 4 feet long. And I made it myself with the students using a staple and mosquito screening. Just fold it, staple, make your sock. Then the top, the yellow funnel, you can buy it. You can buy the funnel from Great Lakes IPM. It's going to be about $15, maybe a little more. But the material, the plastic, is very good quality. It's going to last 10, 15 years. On the right, that was 12 years ago. That's one of my twins, and just inspecting a bag. They're heavy. These bags, when they're full, they can hold 40,000 Japanese beetles. But what I would like to tell you now is that this was very effective, but only for research. So my goal was not to tell growers, oh, you can make your own sock and use it, because they will not do it. So I have other ideas with the students. Basically, you need to monitor for Japanese beetle using a single trap. Just one trap baited with the lure. When you get the first adults, then if you want to do mass trapping, then you can deploy the mass trapping system in the perimeter of the block at that moment. Don't wait. Because once Japanese beetles go to the crop, it's very difficult to push them away. They're very happy feeding, mating, and then the only way to push them away is to spray insecticide and then maybe do the mass trapping. So you have to be proactive. You have to start planning in advance, get the lure, get the materials, monitor, and then you can see in 2016, that was the phenology, that was the temporal pattern of captures. So every week there is an increase. You get the maximum number of beetles on mid-July in Missouri. Then it depends on the weather. You can have a second peak, and then by August, they're gone. So the season in Missouri is about 7 to 8 weeks. And what you can see on the y-axis is the average number of beetles that we killed just for this graph in 1 year. So on July 12, on average, the traps were killing 45,000 beetles. Every single trap, just for that particular date, they were 45,000. Well, I guess you're going to laugh with this slide. Austin Dudenhofer, he was an undergrad student, and he did so much work with me on this project. He came up with an idea. So, well, maybe growers would be more interested in using a trash container, large capacity, because the socks, you have to replace them every week. They're getting full. In Missouri, high number of beetles, maybe not Massachusetts or New England. So what you can see is a trash can. I think it's 30 gallons, 35 gallons in capacity. Here is a picture with Austin Dudenhofer showing to you that in 2 weeks, they were full. And that's thousands and thousands of Japanese beetles. Well, there is something I would like to say here is that the sock, because it's a screen, there is some air circulation. So you have the funnel, Japanese beetles are coming, they go inside. They don't die on the same day. They could be alive for 1 or 2 or 3 days. It depends on the heat. So they're alive. It seems that they release more pheromone or more volatiles, more odor, because you can get more. So we suspected that ventilation was very important. So we decided to do a little research to see what happens when you compare a trash can that has these windows with a screen, one in the front, one in the back. You have the funnel so that they can crash and go inside. And we compare that with a trash can that has no windows. So this graph shows that the comparison was the sock versus the ventilated trash can versus the non-ventilated trash can. So this proves that ventilation is important. If you can use you need to have a trap that maybe has some windows, some screen, so that you can allow the air circulation, because that attracts more beetles. When you compare the ventilated trap against the non-ventilated trap, it's exactly the same. The only difference is no windows. You are reducing capture by more than half. Just in 7 weeks on that year, we killed 2.6 million Japanese beetles. No insecticides, 0. This is just to show you that all this research was published with Austin, and we only reported 3 years of research, so 2014 to 2016. So we didn't work for 6 years, but just for this paper, we say, okay, let's show or include only 3 years of data. And this research in this paper includes data from blueberry and elderberry. This shows the Lincoln University Carver Farm is the farm that has this elderberry block. The Lincoln Busby Farm, it has 2.5 acres of blueberries. I just want to show you the total. In 6 years, at these two farms, we killed 15.6 million Japanese beetles, and we sprayed 0 insecticides in these particular years and farms. Some considerations we had, because we have to be careful with the research. Number one, here are the blueberry plants. So all these blueberries are on this side, on the left. So there is a fence. We deployed the traps away from the crop, never on the crop. We didn't put them on the trap inside the block or in the perimeter. We put the traps away from the crop. That was about 10 yards, maybe 20 feet. And then, based on the map, we knew Japanese beetles were coming from the left, I'm sorry, from the right. That's where you have the pasture. So we deployed 16 traps just on two sides. And then we just had about 15 yards between the traps and the crop. So my point here is don't place the traps on the crop, because there is going to be spillover effect and there is going to be some problems. Here is a video showing how these trash cans are killing those Japanese beetles. It's going to be maybe 1 minute. So the pheromone and the floral volatile are very powerful. And yes, I know we're attracting many more than otherwise. But if we don't do this, the only option is to spray insecticides. And that is what I wanted to avoid, because it will be expensive and maybe not effective in organic systems. So anyway, I'm just showing to you this. And there is another video from above. You can see the sex pheromone lure. The floral volatile is inside. And then you're going to see how they're flying, crashing. They go inside the trap, the container, and they cannot escape. So just to show you how this works in practice. Well, because again, I was working with organic growers, they were asking me, well, how expensive is this trapping system? So I was making some numbers. I can tell you now. You can buy the yellow top. At that time, it was $10.50 per the funnel. Maybe it's $15 now. The trash can with the lid, $15. Maybe it's a little more. The mesh, the glue, well, maybe $30 7 years ago. When you make a trap and you invest $30, that trap is going to last 10 years. How many we used? The sock, we used 16. Maybe with fewer would have been okay. But with the trash can, we use pretty much 7 per acre. I think it's too many. I don't think we need to use that many. So when you place 7 traps, the investment of making 7 traps per acre is $213 7 years ago. But that's a single time investment. You are going to be using the same trap for 10 years, for example. The lures for research 7 years ago, it was $4, $4.25. Maybe it's going to be $6, $7. What I do, I place 1 lure per trap, and halfway through the season, like 4 weeks later, I add a second lure to keep the power of the lure attracting beetles. So what you can see now, that $60 per acre for 7 traps, that's going to be the only expense every year. That includes a replacement. Well, if I'm working in organic systems, and I recommend growers to spray Pyganic or Acera, a different organic insecticide, then I have to tell them, well, you have to spray the high rate twice a week. So per acre, I know it's going to be $77 every time you spray organic. Well, if you spray 6 weeks, twice a week, you are spending more than $900 just on organic insecticide. I don't think that's cost effective.
While we let that run, we can also take any questions that folks have right now. So please go ahead and put those into the chat box. and we'll get those answered for you.
In the meantime, I can answer to Cassie in a chat, in the chat, and the question was, you have no labor cost associated with the traps. That's true. The cost of spraying labor also is not included in the calculation. So I'm only talking about materials for the spray and for the trapping. You have to add the cost of labor for both. So you have to have a tractor, you have to load the tank, you have to prepare the insecticide, you have to spray. So I think it may take longer to spray than making the traps. Maybe it takes 1 hour to make a trash can, and then you have to move them every time. Okay, Nancy, you picked more Japanese beetles than raspberries. Yeah, raspberries is one of the most difficult crops where you can control Japanese beetles. The easiest crop at this moment, I can tell you, the easiest crop is going to be blueberry. The most difficult crops is going to be grapes and raspberries.
We had another question from Ken. How did you fix the yellow top to the trash can, and what material was the sock again?
The sock, it was made of mosquito netting that you can buy in Lowe's, the rolls. And then I was using a stapler, just staples to seal them. That was very easy to do. And if any person this summer want to try what I'm discussing, I'm happy to work with them. Just carefully done, because we need to do some planning and it depends on the crop. So making the socks, it was very easy. I could just make one sock in 15 minutes. And I think I could make one trap, cutting the windows and gluing all of that, maybe in 1 hour and a half.
All right. We do have a few more questions before you go on, Jaime.
Yes.
If your fields are surrounded by turf or pasture, how do you site the traps without pulling them over the crop?
Well, as I was mentioning before, the goal, the idea, is to intercept them before they come to the crop. So timing is very important. When you have the first one in the monitoring trap, in the perimeter of the block, away from the crop, then you can intercept them. They are more likely to come to the traps than to the crop, in blueberry and in elderberry. I will show you later work done last year in Massachusetts in blueberry and in grape. So I have to tell you that. I will show you in a moment.
Sure.
How can you get at least materials for the traps? I will show you in a moment. Where can you get the yellow funnel? You can buy the yellow funnel also from the same vendor, Great Lakes IPM. So I will continue and I will come back to this. I can show you that you can kill many Japanese beetles with traps. But the most important question is, what about the crop? What about injury to the fruit or the foliage? So any grower who gets this level of injury by Japanese beetles, they will not be happy on the left. What about the right? Is that level of injury by Japanese beetles acceptable or not? So remember that IPM is not about having a perfect crop. So 1% injury, the defoliation, just 5%, 10%, is that too much? So when I was talking to growers in Missouri, they told me, Jaime, 5%, 10%, no problem. I can live with that. So let me continue. This tells you in elderberry is more attractive to Japanese beetles than blueberry. What you can see in this table is in 4 different dates, 2 different farms. So Carver Farm is elderberry. On June 30th, on 60 plants, we're just walking around the plants and in the perimeter, and we're counting how many beetles do you see in 60 plants? Well, 50. 50 beetles in 60 plants. And the traps, they were killing thousands. So I can prove that by having the traps, you are not going to get beetles in the crop, or you get very few. So what was the foliation of elderberry on June 30th? Well, 1.8%. That was kind of assessment that we did. In Busby Farm is blueberry. Blueberry is less attractive. So if anyone wants to control Japanese beetles in blueberry, I'm very confident that you can do it. In 100 plants in the perimeter on July 6th, not even one Japanese beetle, 0. Injury to the crop, 0. On July 14th, Carver Farm, elderberry, 20 beetles on plants, in 60 plants. The foliation was getting a little more because there were a few getting to the crop, feeding on the foliage, and those are not coming back to the traps. They're very happy in the foliage. But again, 12% injury on elderberry, which is more attractive, according to the growers, it was okay. No concern. In Busby Farm, the same date, 1 Japanese beetle in 100 plants and no injury. Well, I can show you more results. This is coming from the paper that I showed you before, organic management. I am going to show you for elderberry at the Carver Farm on 1 year, according to year, every single week that we did this sampling, the average number of Japanese beetles, you can agree with me, is very low. Injury to the plant, defoliation, 2%, well, close to 3%. Average, very few beetles, and almost no injury in elderberry on that year. In comparison, you can see July 2nd to July 28th. In the same period, those traps killed 484,000 Japanese beetles. So there is no comparison. The traps are killing and the beetles are not present on the plants, or very, very few. Well, I can show you, well, I only show you 5 weeks, but I told you before, the whole season is 7 to 8 weeks. Well, for that year at that farm, the traps killed 848,000 beetles. I'm going to show you now 2015, every week. Injury on average 8%, 3.7% the average of beetles on plants. That's not a high number. 2016, pretty good. So there is some variability year to year, more beetles or fewer beetles, but this is the most difficult crop when you compare blueberry and elderberry. It's more difficult elderberry. I don't want to say more difficult, but it was very good, in my opinion. Blueberry. In blueberry, I'm going to show you just 2 samplings. No injury, very, very little injury, and almost no beetles in 2014. But the traps, they were killing almost 800,000 beetles in the same period for the whole season. 2015, 16. You can look at the bottom. There is almost no beetles on the plants. There is no injury because blueberries are easier to control with Japanese beetles. So all of this work, it was published, and there is also, I was also associated with the University of Missouri at that moment. Those are extension articles that we talk to the growers when we present the information saying, this is what we found. You can buy the lure here. You can construct. There is a link in that article telling you how to do it. How can you construct your own trap? And if you would like to go that way. Well, what I would like to do now is to spend maybe 20, 25 minutes discussing a project that one student conducted last year in Massachusetts. So all what I told you before is Missouri, high levels of Japanese beetles, high pressure. In Massachusetts, I wanted to do research with the grad student, undergrad student last year. So we have an internship program that supports undergrad student research every year. So Moshe Skoglund Mateo is a grad student helping me with the supervision. Moshe wanted to do research in Massachusetts in grapes and also blueberry. The objective of this research, it was to see if what we found in Missouri, you could do the same in Massachusetts. In blueberry, I was very confident. In grapes, I didn't know what to expect because, you know, it would be a lot more difficult, but we did it. And at the same time, in Missouri, all these years of research, we had frozen Japanese beetles. And I didn't know what to do with those. I didn't want to put them in the trash. So I was working with a compost expert, and we composted the Japanese beetles. That's a different story. So with Moshe, that was the idea. Oh, can we collect Japanese beetles? Can we implement mass trapping? And then can we compost the Japanese beetles using a new idea, but didn't work. So I will not talk about that. What we did is in Belchertown, the UMass orchard has some blocks with grapes. Then we use half an acre for this study. You can see in the picture one single trap, the sock, not the mass trap, not the trash can. We use the sock because that was easy to do for this research. Well, we had a single trap because I was comparing that trap with a different system, a different device on underground for the composting. So that was a mistake. The mistake I made is that I didn't really protect the crop. What I should have done, I should have deployed the whole trapping system as soon as I found the first beetle. So one trap, of course, is not enough, even in grape. I mean, even less in grape. And then because there was Japanese beetles coming to the crop, and the trap, it was catching some, but not many. So it was a problem. So the farm manager sprayed insecticides once on July 13th. That's when I got the text message, Jaime, the Japanese beetle trap is not working. I'm going to spray the block. They go ahead, please, yeah, go ahead. And I will deploy all these other traps in the perimeter. So after he sprayed, then I added more traps. So the mistake was not having the traps, all those 6 traps, but I would like to maybe repeat this study next year. But you will see later that actually it was just one spray because there was a mistake. Then that's all what we needed. But we also have blueberries. In the same orchard, in Belchertown, we have about 0.3 acres of blueberries. And based on Missouri's experience, then I knew, okay, no problem. One trap, see what happens. The trap, you can see the location in a corner. And then we added a second trap, just in case. But at the end of the season, I think the second trap, it wasn't needed. So you can control Japanese beetles in 0.3 acres with a single trap. That's what we found last year. I want to show you a quick video because we have a trail camera pointing to the trap just to see the accumulation of beetles. So this is Belchertown. Behind the trap, well, on this side is the blueberry. What you can see now is the apple trees. So we recorded this video just to show you you can see the beetles inside the sock, and they're moving, they're alive. So it's like a shiny because they're metallic in color. You can see a few flying to the trap. Okay, I want to show you another video. This video was in grape. So the grapes are right there. And the trap maybe was also too close to the crop. So that was another mistake. So that video is going to show you same thing. The beetles coming to the trap, crashing, going inside. There are not too many. At that moment, it's July 12th. That was one day before the farm manager sprayed the block because they were more on the grapes than on the trap. Well, let me show you the results now. Let me just check the chat. How do you empty the trash can full of beetles? I will come back to that in a moment. Well, this chart shows Japanese beetles counts how many beetles we counted on the foliage. What you can see is the average number. Actually, it's totals. It's not the average. It's the total number. In blueberry, July 13, 17, 25 on 40, I think it was 40 plants. And then 4, 0, 0, and 0. Well, in grapes, it was different. Because on July 13, 17, we counted almost 300 on grapes, on the plant. And then at that moment is when the farm manager say, Jaime, I have to spray insecticide. You go, go ahead. So he sprayed a neonicotinoid. So the reason that you see 850 on July 20, that is because when he sprayed on July 13th, those beetles on the foliage feeding, they got sprayed. They didn't fall to the ground. They stay on the foliage. So when the student was counting on July 20, he was shaking the plants and those beetles were falling to the ground. They were dead. So this number of 850 actually shows dead beetles. But after the spray, so after that count, you can see in grapes 2 on July 25 in the whole block, or in some sampling that we did, 29 and 0. So that tells you, or that tells me, that after this, we sprayed insecticide once, it was okay. You can actually ignore the 850 because those numbers are dead insects that were just attached to the foliage. That was the spray in July 13th. So that's how many insects on foliage. And then what happened? Oh yeah, by the way, in grape, just on July 25, you can see 2 beetles on the foliage. On the same day, we counted 8,000 in traps. So if I should have placed the traps from the beginning, maybe we didn't have to spray insecticide, but I have to acknowledge that mistake. Here, this graph shows the total number of Japanese beetles on traps. So on July 17th, in blueberry, one trap, that was all what we had, one trap, got 1,355. On the foliage, there were 25. You can see. So I am trying to compare 1,355 on traps versus 20-something in the foliage. In grape, that's when things were not working because the traps were killing some, but they were more on the foliage. But in blueberry, you can see the increase in captures. Now we have 2 traps because I wanted to be more conservative. Almost 4,000 on 2 traps. Then 2,100. Then 600. And then 206. But the number of beetles in blueberry in the traps, it was much higher than the 25, 4, 0, 0, 0, right? In grapes, you can see on July 25, in traps, that was now 6 traps, 8,300. And how many on the crop? 2. That shows that after the sprays, things were working. Well, when I left Missouri, before I left, some growers were interested in this work. And they say, well, I can make my own traps. I can also work in apple. They were trying to protect apple and peach. So this grower, Taylor Family Orchard, is in Kansas, close to Kansas City. After we discussed the research and he attended some presentations, he said, you know what? I really don't want to spray peaches and apple in his farm. He constructed 19 barrels. I will show you a picture. containers. I didn't say it right. Then for 5 years, he has been able to control Japanese beetles because I was in touch. 3 months ago, they asked me to go to it's called the Great Plant Growers Conference in San Joseph. I presented 3 different presentations, including one on Japanese beetles. So to prepare for the presentation, I wanted to ask him questions. So here he says, what he has seen in 21, 22, and 23, which is good news, is that he has seen less or fewer Japanese beetles. I showed you before that Missouri in 2017, it was extremely bad. According to him, is less pressure. You shouldn't say past, not pat. He said that he has been able to control Japanese beetles in apple. And the only problem he has is honey crisp, because Japanese beetles are responding more, they're attracted to honey crisp. So he has to do a little work on that, how to improve it. But he also told me that now a different insect is actually causing more damage than Japanese beetles, June beetles. So I need to work with him to see if there is a pheromone, because the trap that you have for Japanese beetles is not going to be effective against June beetles because there is no pheromone included for the June beetles. So when I was texting him before those presentations, I asked him, can you tell me in general, do you think mass trapping is working for you? Do you think it's cost effective or not? So he said, it's cost effective. That was the answer. And below that is basically coming from the newspaper, or I think it's from the website or a newspaper. Just somebody asked him about that, and he was replying, it's not expensive. He spent money on the barrels and the containers, only one time expense. So the blue containers that he made are shown on the left. So he made 19 of those, and that's how he's controlling Japanese beetles in peach and apple. The other one in the middle is a different grower who was using a PVC pipe and just different ideas. That's not coming from me, that's coming from the grower. And then on the right, you can see the trash can with the beetles. So now the answer to the question, how do you empty? There is 2 options. One is that you can see it's full. I mean, one of those is full. Either you can bring an empty one and just take the old one with full in your truck and see what you can do with that. Maybe just put them in the freezer, just let them die with the heat. Or you can place trash bags inside the container, but those trash bags, heavy duty, I don't think they're going to work, because when you have trash bags, then the ventilation is not going to be working. So the solution may be just to replace the containers. You can bring an empty one and take the old one full. In conclusion, I think the Japanese beetle system, the mass trapping, is working for organic growers, especially in blueberry. In elderberry, well, growers in Missouri, some of them grow elderberry, seems to be working well. Based on this grower in Liberty, Missouri, in peach and apple, he is happy with the system. In grapes, that's more difficult. And I would like to repeat the study this year from the beginning, having all these 6 traps in the same block early in the season. And the planning is required, because you need to make the trap, you have to buy the lure, you have to put things together. So the pest management for Japanese beetles, for any insect, should be proactive, not reactive. When you go to the field and you already see the beetles, you have to spray insecticides. There is not going to be other way. And regarding biological control, well, you have some insects that are predators. You can see that in the large picture that was 12 years ago. It's an assassin bug. And then you also have parasitic flies, which those lay the eggs on the thorax, and the larvae of the fly goes inside the body of the beetle and is going to kill it. but we don't have enough of these insects to be able to control Japanese beetle, like a biological control. I just want to conclude by saying that I show you this table, how many Japanese beetles we kill in 6 years, 15.6 million. So you have a freezer in Jefferson City at the university full of Japanese beetles. So I wanted to see what to do with those, and we know, you can see that in the abstract, Japanese beetles, 10% of the body is nitrogen. So we composted the Japanese beetles. And I'm not going to discuss the composting system. It was very easy to do. It was we were growing lettuce in the greenhouse using compost made of Japanese beetles. And we also added worms to produce vermicompost, but that's a different story. I just want to tell you that, and that's why after this work, I was interested in this self-composting device for Japanese beetles. And that was a hole in the ground with plywood and the funnel. It didn't work. So that's why I made the mistake in grapes of not having the whole block protected.
All right, well, thank you for a great presentation, Jaime. And thank you all for joining us, and we'll hope to see you next week or the week after. Have a great afternoon.